Good morning, everyone. My name is Esther Larikiti, and I'm going to be the resource person for MES016 Educational Research. The topic that we are going to cover is Block 1, Perspective of Knowledge. We seem to have a slight technical problem, and even though I'm going on live, I can't have my camera on. So I'm going to ask your okay, we will move on to Unit 1. Unit 1, there are 4 units in Perspective of Knowledge. The first unit is Introduction to Educational Research. The second one being Knowledge Generation, how knowledge is generated. We are going to discuss from the historical perspective. And the third unit also covers knowledge generation, and the last unit is approach to educational research, the basic assumptions, scope, and limitations. So that we are going to discuss all of that today. So first, let us go into introduction to educational research. Here we are going to talk about knowledge. Okay, so what is knowledge? Every day, whenever we ask a person something, it means like we are asking what he knows, right? So the word knowledge is derived from the verb to know. Okay, so loosely defined, knowledge can be termed as everything that a person knows. That means that I'm that means that every person has different knowledge. Okay, I gain knowledge through my experiences. As a small child, his knowledge will be his parents, the way that his parents reacted when his parents is happy, and when his parents are not happy with the child. So the child can tell whether his parents emotional feelings. Okay, so that is the personal knowledge of a child. So personal knowledge will differ from person to person, from individuals to individuals. Suppose like what I have known, I gained through my life experiences, and what you know may differ because your life experiences can never be the same with my life experience. So that means that personal knowledge, they are different for individuals, and they are not very dependable. They can change over time, okay, from person to person, and they are unexamined. We don't examine whether my person, you cannot say that you are wrong if what I know is what I know. Okay, so I cannot just say that the way that you feel, or the way that you are doing things, or the knowledge that you have are wrong, because it's from your experiences. So they are unexamined, they are untested. We cannot test personal knowledge. I cannot say that your knowledge is right or wrong, because it's how you conceive things. Okay, and therefore the personal knowledge are very subjective. Suppose like if we take this knowledge in the scientific context, okay, scientific context, then the piece of information or knowledge that I possessed, if I tested it, okay, tested means that um, I'll try to find validation for that particular statement, which information that I term as my knowledge. Okay, and then if it is examined and tested, and if it's found to be true, then that is known as scientific knowledge. And that scientific knowledge is what has been passed on from generation to generation, what we taught in schools and in the educational institutions. Okay, so those knowledge are known as scientific knowledge. So the knowledge that we possess will express our standards, our ideals, our tastes, and even our personality. Okay, so this knowledge from is associated with the philosophical traditions, three philosophical traditions too. The first one is realistic tradition. Knowledge, they says that knowledge is derived from deductive reasoning. Okay, the considered reasoning to be very, very important. So they says that all knowledge can be reasoned out. Suppose like in mathematics, even though we don't prove anything or we don't experience anything, we calculated we make calculations using numericals, and we say that those informations are true. All right, so those are known as rationalistic traditional knowledge. Okay, so rationalist knowledge. So the next one that we have is empirical knowledge. So according to empiricism, they always considered experience as the most important way to gain knowledge. Okay, they considered experience as the most important way to gain knowledge. They says that if we experience it, okay, if we experience knowledge, then then we can find that the knowledge that we possessed are true. So empiricism says that everything we the human have the power to compare, combine, analyze, and generalize whatever knowledge that we have, and we have the power to make our own decisions, make our own conclusion from our analysis, comparison, and generalization. And those generalization uh, generalized knowledge are known as empirical knowledge. Okay, so empirical tradition emphasize learning from experiences through reasoning, okay, through observations, generalizations, and willingness to learn concept which can be related to a particular phenomenon. It has to be according to the experiences. Okay, so the last tradition that we have of knowledge is that pragmatic tradition. Okay, pragmatic tradition says that experimentation are not enough for acquiring knowledge. uh, they emphasize on doing things. Okay, they emphasize of doing things. Only experiences cannot be considered a valid way of identifying true knowledge. So the experiment, they emphasize on experimentation. Okay, mm, experimentation, they experiment based on controlled observation of environment and even the process of generating and testing knowledge has been credited to Dewey, and he says that if for a knowledge to be valid, it has to be experienced, experimented, and the generalization that we gain from those experimentation are known as the pragmatic knowledge. Okay, so those are the three tradition we have from philosophical perspective. They have defined knowledge in three different ways. The first was rationalism, rationalistic tradition. In rationalistic tradition, they have emphasized on reasoning. Example is mathematics. Okay. Then the second one is that they empiricism. Okay, empirical tradition. In empirical tradition, they says that human mind have the power to compare, combine, analyze, and generalize through experiences whatever knowledge that we have. Okay, then we have the pragmatic tradition. The pragmatic tradition says that experiences are not enough to call a particular information as knowledge. It has to be experimented, and the experiment has to be carried out in a controlled environment and events. Pragmatic traditions can be credited to the science, science. Okay, science like uh, chemistry and physics. Okay, so those are the those that is the meaning of knowledge. Okay, then we can move on to the types of knowledge. We have four types of knowledge. The first one is declarative knowledge. This is also known as knowing what it is. Okay, in Declarative knowledge is purely based on the personal experience. Okay, so we have the knowledge of a solar system. So in a solar system, we cannot see the solar system. It is written in books. It is in declarative form, and um, in our solar system, we all know that the scientists have already found that there are 8 planets and one sun, and the planets rotate around the sun. That has been learned by the student has learned about that, and they have um, they have been taught about that. Okay, so in declarative knowledge, um, the knowledge has been tested through rules of evidence that makes it verifiable, replicable, and logically consistent. So that is declarative knowledge. Okay, so it is knowing what it is, like the four seasons, uh, solar system, the digestive system of a human being, human anatomy, like that. Okay, then we have functional knowledge. Functional knowledge is mainly concerned with how to do things, and it involves performance based on our understanding. So, in functional knowledge is based on declarative knowledge. Suppose, like we know about football, okay, then functional knowledge will be like what action should be performed in order to play football. Okay, so that is functional knowledge. Okay, we know that we need to kick the ball, and we know that we need to kick the ball towards the goalpost of the opposite team. Right, so that is functional knowledge. And procedural knowledge is essentially skill based. Okay, it refers to the skill that we acquired. So this again is based on procedural knowledge. Okay, so that means that in functional knowledge we know how to we know that we need to kick the ball toward the goal post of the opposite team. Okay, our rival team. And then in procedural knowledge we actually are kicking the ball towards the goalpost of the opposite the rival team or the opposite team, right? So that is procedural knowledge. It is largely based on the performance of the right action in the correct sequences. So that we can compare this to many other phenomena like stitching. Okay, we learn the concept about stitching, what is needed and what and all. Then we know how we learn about like the importance of cutting the cloth and where to stitch. Okay, so actually doing part, stitching part is the procedural knowledge. Right. So the last one is conditional knowledge. Okay, conditional knowledge is combination of procedural knowledge and higher level declarative knowledge. Okay, that means that when we face a problem, okay, we are playing the field and we know how to kick the ball. Okay, we are actually kicking the ball. Then we encounter the problem. We have to tackle the other team, okay, in a football match. Okay, then when we tackle the other team in a football match, we may do things which are not taught in the in by the coach, okay, football coach, but according to the problem that we face at time. So those are known as conditional knowledge. It informs of what one should do under given circumstances, why and under what condition one should do this and not that. Okay, so that means that in conditional knowledge, we make a judgment as we face the problem. We know how to do it, and we can do it. But then when we do it and we face a problem, we instantly make decisions and change our course of action according to what we do. All right, so those are the types of knowledge. So let us move on to the sources of knowledge. Let us move on to the sources of knowledge. So we have talked about the three traditions of knowledge. Okay, according to philosophical perspective, we have talked about rationalism, we have talked about empiricism, and we have talked about pragmatism. So that means that as a human being, we have a different way of gaining knowledge. Okay, so there can be many sources of knowledge. The experience that we have, each and every individual have in this world are different. A person, a child comes into schools with different experiences, and they have their own knowledge, so their personal knowledge is considered very, very, very important. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about the sources of knowledge. So the first source of knowledge that we can think about will be can be experiences. Okay, almost every day we learn from our experiences. Today also, like for me, I have not never gone live in YouTube, and I tried going live in YouTube, and my camera is not working. So I learn new things, and I learn a new information. I learn new way of giving a class today. So that is my experiences, and what my knowledge bank has been enriched with the knowledge of going live in YouTube. So that is my experience. Okay. So when we talk about the knowledge gained by a child through his experience, his or her experiences, like when suppose like if we want to teach hot and cold to a child. Okay, if I said but it's hot, don't touch it, they don't understand still. It's hot. What is hot? So that if I let the child touch a hot plate or hot something that is hot, which will not burn the baby's body, then if I let the child touch it, they will know hot. They will be able to associate hot and the hot sensation that she or he feels with his or her hand. Okay, so from that experiences, the baby will be able to perceive what is hot. Okay, and then next I can also make the child experience cold. If I let her touch an ice, then she can, and if I told her that this is cold, this is ice and it is cold, you shouldn't touch it, she'll be able to understand what is cold, and from her experiences she will gain that particular knowledge. So from our experiences in our everyday life, we learn different things. A child, when they come into a classroom, in education, we deal with students, we deal with people, we deal with society. So whenever we think about things, we need to take our knowledge to the classroom. So the child, when they come into the classroom, they have gained so much knowledge which they have learned from their interaction with their peers. Okay, interaction with their parents, interaction they have gained through society. Okay, and they will start gaining knowledge through through their interaction with you as a teacher or around the surrounding. Okay, so that will become his personal knowledge, the knowledge that he gained through experiences. The next sources of knowledge can be social custom and tradition. So when we talk about social, it has everything to do with um, society, the social interaction, the interaction that a person have, an individual have with his surrounding. Okay, that means that whenever inside a classroom, whenever a child interact with his peer group, then that is, they can be said that that is social. Okay, custom is the practices that is common among a group of people. Okay, the practice that is common among a group of people. So we have talked about a child having different definite knowledge. Okay, so customs, there are certain tradition that every family follows, every community follows. Okay, so when those tradition, customs, those way of living is assimilated by a child, okay, assimilated, taken in by the child as a way of life, then that become his sources of knowledge. Okay, he has a knowledge bank about the traditions of his society, the tradition of his community, and the practices of his family. So that become his knowledge. So that way he gained knowledge about the knowledge through social customs and traditions. Then the third one is reasoning. Reasoning is more dependable means of reaching and establishing truth. Okay, so there are two types of reasoning: deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning can be it can be associated with Socrates. You know, Socrates is a Greek philosopher, and he is very famous for his syllogism. Okay, so he always have a major premises, minor premises, and inference or deduction. Major premises is that which is in general, what we know in general. Suppose like if I say that everyone living in Aizawl are Mesos. Okay, that is majority of the people living in Aizawl are Mesos. That is major premises. I talk about the general population of Aizawl city. Then if I say Ruati is a Meso, okay, that will be the minor premises. I talk about one girl, Ruati, and I refer her as a Mizo because since she is living in Aizawl, she must be Mizo because majority of the person living in Mizoram, Aizawl city are Mizo. Okay, so I can make a references. Okay, therefore, Rati's sister Mai is a Mizo. That is an inference or deduction that I can make. Okay, so that in deductive reasoning we go from general, okay, the general knowledge to a specific knowledge. Okay, so that is deductive reasoning. Then again we have inductive reasoning. In inductive reasoning we start with a specific events or a specific knowledge. Like if I say instead of a generalization, Rati is a Mizo. Her friend is also a Meso. Therefore, everyone in her community must be a Meso. So that is inductive reasoning. From a specific instance to a general uh, implication. That is inductive reasoning. So those two can be another form of knowledge, not another source of knowledge. Okay, then we have scientific method. Scientific method is nothing but uh, the combination of inductive and deductive method. Here we apply scientific experimentation into into gaining knowledge. Okay, so like if we're going to here we use both deductive as well as inductive reasoning. First, we'll use deductive reasoning. Okay, from general to specific. From specific, we prove that we try to formulate hypothesis, and then from hypothesis we collect data, and then we try to prove that the hypothesis that we formulated is correct through our uh, analysis of the data that we have collected. So, in general, the steps that we follow in scientific method is that we always think that some theory existed about the phenomena. Okay, then the like we want to find out, okay, the certain people, for example, a theory exists about a phenomena. Here let me take an example. Suppose like we believe that every student in our class have a study habits, okay, definite study habits. So there's a theory. Okay, then the researcher and the researcher identifies a research question in the context of the problem. So the researcher question will be: there is uh, every does every student have What are the different levels of study habits among the student of class 10? Okay, the class, particular class. Then again, the researcher will formulate the hypothesis. There exists different study habits, level of study habits among the student of class 10. Right, that is formulation of hypothesis, or he can formulate something like female students have higher, better study habits compared to boys of class 10 students. That is hypothesis. Okay, so the third steps that we do is we make a hypothesis, and the fourth step is that we try to make describe specific procedure by which the variables are defined and the action performed them. Okay, so the next thing is that how will I collect data to find out the study habits among class 10 students? What could I do? Should I interview every one of them, or shall I give them a test, or shall I administer some tests? So that way, I try to find out the study habits of uh, class 10 students. Okay, so I try to map out what course of action I'll take to find out the study habits of class 10 students. So that is the fourth step. In the fifth step, I collected the data according to the research design, or whatever I have made in step 4. Okay, so if I'm going to find the study habits of class 10, I may give um, psychological test to find out the study habits, and then interview each and every one of them to find out their learning style in accordance with their study habits. So that will be the fifth steps. So then after collection of all the data, okay, I'll find out the study habits of each and every one of the student, and I will group them. Okay, I can say that 20% of the student have high study habit, 30% have moderate level of study habits, 50% have very low level of study habits. Okay, so that way I can find out the level, and then I can put my hypothesis into testing. The first hypothesis, there exists study habits among the student of class 10. I already proved it. The second one, the another hypothesis that I can frame is that there is no significant difference between the study habits of male and female students. If I compare that, and then if I find out that it is true, then the hypothesis is accepted, and I can say that the theory regarding the study habits of class 10 students is correct, then it becomes a verifiable knowledge. But then if it is rejected, then I frame another hypothesis, then I go over step 4, step 3 to step 7 again, and modify the hypothesis until it is accepted, and then the theory that I have, the hypothesis that I have will be modified. All right, so that is the way that scientific knowledge is acquired. So it is a very lengthy process, and this type of knowledge that has been verified are the one that is passed on from generation to generation. Okay, so let us now talk about what social reality is. Okay, so the world, everybody, we are will when we are born, we grow up and live our lives in different ways. Okay, in this world, everybody are, when we are born, we live and grow up in different environments, and this environment can be broadly divided into two parts. The first part is the physical environment. The physical environment refers to the natural environment where we live in. My physical environment is that I live in a particular locality. I grew up where there are lots of trees, or there is a concrete jungle, and the area, the climate, everything that I can touch and feel. Those are my physical environment. Okay, the object, the civilization that I grew up with, the artifact. Okay, and there is the social environment. The social environment is the main characteristic of a particular society. In the social environment, I interact with my parents. Okay, I interact with my siblings, and I interact with everyone around me. Okay, so my friends, my neighbors. Okay, that is the social environment. Uh, it may be conducive, it may be bad. Okay, so sociality is the name given to the characteristic of human society, that is our social environment. Okay, so the social environment is the one that shapes our lifestyle, our attitude, our belief, our value system, the way that I view my world, my personality, my whole personality, my belief system, my value system. Okay, everything that I viewed. Okay, everything that framed myself more, okay, my socially how I appear to be. Those are not as social reality. Okay, then we have so then there in social reality there can be a subjective and an objective view. Okay, subjective view is that the way that I personally viewed things. Okay, but then we may appear to be alike. Okay, we may appear to be like same as a miso girl, but then we differ from each other. We have the different physical world as well as social world individually, so the way that we view things are different, and we have a way of presenting things in different manners. Okay, that is the subjective conception of social reality. Then we have the objective perspective. Okay, in the objective conception of social reality, yeah, we have there's a plurality in the physical world, in our physical world. Okay, then we try to formulate laws regarding a particular society, and we try to prove those physical laws that we have conceived, and those are known as the objective conception of social reality. Okay, then let us talk about everything that we need to do. Okay, why do we study the nature and concept of social reality? It's because education is a part of social science. Okay, we have to consider the social environment as well as the physical environment. So when we are going to conduct research, we need to know our social reality. Okay, so that we will have a subjective as well as objective perspective. So that is the reason that this objective and subjective conception of social reality is really really important. Okay, so all our researches will be conducted based on them. Okay, social reality, social conception as well, subjective conception as well as objective conception. We try to give an objective perspective in conducting our research, but then our subjective view also matters in formulating, making certain generalizations. Okay, so why do we conduct research? Why do we conduct research, and why is research needed? Okay, the first reason that research we need to conduct research is we need generation of knowledge. Whenever we conduct research, we come to a new conclusion, like when we formulate a hypothesis and prove that a particular hypothesis is accepted, and we make a generalization uh, based on the hypothesis that we have proven, we have accepted, then that become new knowledge. New knowledge generation is of knowledge is really really important, because the society is going towards uh, advancement every step of the way. So there is a in our physical environment, specifically in our physical environment, we see a lot of advancement. We see scientific knowledge. Okay, we see many scientific knowledge, like the use of technology. Their technology, we can see that we can find that the technological advancement has doubled, tripled in a few years. Okay, 1 or 2 years, the technological knowledge that we have doubles, right? So that means that new knowledge has been generated through research every step of the way. If there is no generation of new knowledge, then the society can will become stagnated, cannot go forward, cannot advance. So generation of knowledge is very important, and research are conducted in order to generate new knowledge. And the new knowledge, when we talk about new knowledge, it is basically based on basic research or fundamental research. This type of knowledge generate this type of research are usually very rigorous and based on very carefully selected samples and techniques. Okay, so this is about generation of knowledge. It has everything to do with our memory level. Okay, the next one is problem solving. So, specifically in problem solving, in education, we confront a variety of problems in the classroom, okay, in the method of teaching language or teaching effectively or method of integrating local knowledge into our curriculum. So, how will the student that I teach develop value system, a good value system? How will the student that we teach have a good critical thinking ability? All those problems are there. So there we need to find solution to those problems that we face in the classroom as well as in all level of our education system. So problem solving become really really important, and research is the basis for finding problem solving knowledge. Okay, knowledge that we require for solving problems in our everyday education system. Okay, so most educational research, which is applied research, are used for problem solving. All right, so the next one is action in specific situation. This action in specific situation. Now let us talk about a classroom situation, only a small classroom situation. In our classroom, different teachers faces different problems, and the problems are specific for a particular group of people but can never be generalized. Okay, if I teach class 10 students in the year 2001 or 2013, those students problem will be different for will be from the next year and the next year. So, in order to solve a problem of a particular class, I may conduct a research. This is known as action research. Suppose, like class 10 students of 2003, 2000, two, 2012 have a problem in learning mathematics. Okay, then I will try to find a solution to that particular class, and when I find a solution, then I will apply that to the particular class, and that same knowledge I may try to apply to different classes. But if it does not work, I need to conduct another research. So in order to find a solution to a specific situation, research is the only way. So the reason that we conduct one research is that we may know and how to act in a particular specific or a particular problematic situation. Okay. Then the last one is that training of future research. If research also serve the purpose of preparing future researchers by providing them with planned research experience, which may initially quite simple but later on become more and more complex. So if I help another researcher develop the skill to perform researches in different areas, then they will become more capable and they will help in generating more knowledge. Okay, so that is very, very important. So retraining of future researcher is very important, and this is one of the reasons why we need to conduct research. If we have more researchers, more MPhil, more PhD scholars in education to conduct research, then they can help in generating more knowledge which are usable, which are more practicable, and which can help us formulate new ways of tackling educational problems. So those are the reasons why we need to conduct educational research. So what is educational research? Okay, educational research is a research where which applies the scientific method for systematic study of educational situations problems. Okay, educational problems. Suppose like if I apply scientific knowledge for finding out the problems in and for generating new knowledge, then that is termed as scientific knowledge. Okay, scientific knowledge. Educational research is characterized by three things. Okay, the first is it is based on inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay, first of all, we have the researcher observed the phenomenon. Okay, so I will see what the problem is. Okay, I will search, observe what problem that we face in the educational system, and then after that, I will formulate, I will write the problems which is prevailing in a particular, in the particular area. Okay, then after that, I will try to formulate a sound hypothesis which could be the solution of the problems, or which could be the possible knowledge that is involved. It does not mean that it is a possible solution. Okay, a possible solution for the problems or the phenomenon. Okay. Then the third thing is that I will design a way of testing the hypothesis. All right. So that is inductive reasoning. Then after that, the hypothesis that I have, the generalization that I have, I will prove it. Okay. Then I will formulate the design, the research design. All right. So after formulating the research design, I will conduct the research to validate the hypothesis that I have made. So it become deductive. Okay. So I collect many data. I collect the data. I organize the data, and then I analyze the data, and from the analysis I try to prove the hypothesis. And if the finding of the analysis is in conformity with the hypothesis, then I accept the hypothesis. I check whether the hypothesis is correct or not from observation of my data, or from experimentation of my data. Right. So that is deductive. So it involves inductive as well as deductive. We observe the phenomena, and then we try to find the generalization, inductive. After that, we collect data and we try to prove the hypothesis, that become deductive. Okay, so research in education system are usually empirical in nature. Okay, we proceed in a systematic manner. Okay, so we observe the social reality. Okay, the social reality that we talk about, the social environment as well as the physical environment. Okay, and then measured the characteristic of the social ability of a particular person. Okay, so we study the characteristic, and then we measured them, we recorded them, and after that we make an our analysis. Okay, and then the last one is that it is always self-correcting. When we find when we formulate a particular research problem and find a solution, okay, then if there is a better solution, and if when someone else conducted the same research after a couple of years and found that it is in contradictory with the findings, then the research automatically correct themselves. So it is self-correcting. Okay, so that is about educational research, what educational research is. Now let us talk about the scope of educational research. Okay, with what are contained in educational research. Educational research covers a very wide variety of territory. Okay, a very vast territory. It covers from every aspect of the education system. So it can be classified into different into by different methods. Okay, the first classification is by level of education. When we talk about level of education, it refers to pre-primary 0 to 6 years. In pre-primary education, there can be lots of researches that can be conducted, like the problems and issues faced by the parents to send their child into pre-primary schools, the availability of pre-primary schools, the quality of pre-primary schools available in a particular area, the access of pre-primary schools across a particular area. Okay, the curriculum followed for pre-primary schools. All that can be a research area. And then we have the school, element primary schools or elementary schools. This will cover like from class 1 to class 8, and then in class 1 to from class 1 to class 8 there can be many research areas. Okay, we have in Mizoram we have different board. Okay, we have CBSE board, we have MBSE board, and ICSE board. There are certain schools which have come up as ICSE board. There we can find out the effective the comparison of the curriculum of ICSE, CBSE, and MBSE, and the aptitude and aptitude of students in those schools, and compare their aptitude. Which schools is best according to the aptitude that the child gain through the education. Okay, there are so many areas that we can conduct research in elementary area, and then um, we have high school and higher secondary school. In the secondary school, where it consists of high school and higher secondary school, there can be many research area again. Okay, so many research have been conducted in these areas. Then we have the um, undergraduate level. Then we have postgraduate level. Okay, graduate level, postgraduate level, and then the tertiary level where we level of education. So in every area of education, research can be conducted. We have research studies on face-to-face education, open education, distance learning. Okay, so there can be many research that can be conducted depending upon the level of education that we chooses. Okay, that is the first classification of education by level of education, scope of educational research. Okay, the second scope can be classification by curricular area. There are many areas of curriculum. Okay, so the areas of curriculum can be for schools. We have language education, Mizo and English. We have science education, environmental education, mathematics education, social science education, environmental science education, art education. Okay, and then the physical, the co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, the libraries. Okay, so all those can be compared, so those comes under curricular areas. All right, then uh, suppose like if we're going to conduct language research in language, then we can talk about teaching of the first language, teaching of the second language, teaching of Hindi, teaching of poetry, teaching of reading comprehension, um, aptitude in aptitude in English, or aptitude in a particular language. All those can be taken up. Then after that, for school that is enough. But then if we go to higher studies, there are commerce stream, art stream, science stream, and then they have different curricular areas. So all those can be an area of educational research. And then if we go to education, okay, teacher education, then we have a curriculum like philosophy, sociology, history of education, educational psychology, educational technology, peace education, environmental education, human rights education, school management. There are so many others, and there are areas like pre-service teacher education, um, and in-service teacher education. All those areas can form as an area for research. So we can classify the scope according to the curricular areas that we chooses. Okay, the last one is classification by research method. In research method, there are different ways of conducting research. All right, so we can take up experimental research, historical research, survey research, ethnographic research, developmental research, case study. So many research types are there, which we will discuss later on. And depending upon the type of research, experimentation are also there. In experimentation, also there are um, many types of experimental research again. So all those types of uh, method that we can adopt for conducting educational research can form as a part of way of classifying scope of educational research. Okay, then let us discuss about the types of studies in educational research. There are two major types of studies that can be conducted in educational research. All right, the first one is quantitative research, and the second one is qualitative research. Quantitative research is based on positivistic paradigm, that is, it is based on uh, physical science. That means that um, whatever knowledge that we are going to gain, we need to collect data, verify it, and then make a measurement. Okay, in quantitative we make a measurement. In qualitative, this is the subjective view. Okay, subjective conception of social reality. Here it is based on humanistic paradigm. That means that it differs from person to person. The researcher's perspective is kept very important in humanistic paradigm. Okay, so under quantitative research, we have experimental research, quasi-experimental research, and correlational research. Here we also have descriptive research, okay, which is not written in your guide books. Okay, then in humanistic perspective, we have survey. Okay, we survey and then we write our perspective, case study, documentary analysis, developmental studies, ethnographic studies, historical research, philosophical research. All right, so let us look into experimental research. Experimental research in education is concerned with uh, investigation of the cause and effect relationship between two educational events, variables. Okay, variables related to the cause, which precede those related to the effect. So we are going to find the cause and effect relationship. How does study habits affect the academic achievement of students? Okay, so that is cause and effect relationship. All right, so the cause variable occurs first, and they are known as antecedent, while the effect variables are called consequent. In experimental studies, the research observed uh, what happens if the antecedent, okay, the antecedent is cause variable, which occur first. Okay, what happens if the antecedent is varied under a control condition and the effect is examined on the variable that is the consequent? So they try to develop the relationship between the two. That is known as experimental research. Okay, then we have quasi-experimental research studies. Okay, in quasi means seemingly but not really. It looks like it, but it's not the reality. Okay, so the research study does not use a truly experimental design but follows the experimental design, then they are called quasi-experimental research. Okay. Most of the research conducted on human being are conducted in quasi-experimental in nature because human beings are not like objects. Okay, human beings are not like object. They changes. All right. So they changes. Okay. So according to the change, the experimentation is adjusted, and this type of investigation is termed as quasi-experimental research. Then we have correlational research. All right, correlational research. Correlational research means going together. In other words, correlation between two variables tells us the relationship between the two. Okay, so if I say that in correlational research, if I say that um, the teacher's job satisfaction reduces the stress of the teachers. Okay, if they are satisfied, then the stress level is very low, then that relationship is known as correlation. Developing those relationship is known as um, correlational studies. Okay, in correlational studies, now we predict one variable from another. Okay, we it helps us to explore and understand the phenomenon. So it is a very important research which help us building concept, right? So if we are going to find the causes of the problems of education system and take many variables and find out the relationship between the variables and their effect on the achievement, then we can formulate certain concept, mm, certain theory regarding a particular problems prevalent in an education system. Then we have descriptive research. So in descriptive research, we find what exists, what really exists in reality, right? What exists in reality. If it is conducted on a large sample through survey, it is called survey studies. But then if it and it is always detailed, comprehensive, we do not change anything, we do not make any prediction, we just find out how the particular populations are. Okay. So suppose like if I'm going to in the descriptive research, we just find the fact as they are. We ask and we find out, and we present whatever the findings that we find as true knowledge. Okay, so that is known as descriptive research. Then we have ethnographic research. In ethnographic research, uh, we describe events that occur in real life on an educational group or a society with respect to social structure, behavior, and perspective of the individual members. We observe a particular group of people, the educational system. We interview each and every one of them, and then we make a conclusion based on our observation. So it is opposite to the experimental research. It has everything to do with our subjective view, the subjective view of every individual within that particular group of people that we are studying in. So it has a great emphasis on naturalistic field study, and there is no control. Okay, there is no control in the ethnographic studies. It is naturalistic. We observe, we collect data in the natural environment with no influence. Okay, so this is conducted based on with respect to the social structure. Okay, that is present, the behavior and the perception of the individual living within that particular society. Then we have historical studies. Okay, in historical studies, we try to find what was. We try to determine and evaluate and understand the past event so that we can gain a clearer understanding of what is what is really happening in the present era, okay, and make prediction for the future. So historical research will try to find a perspective of the past so that we may be able to understand the present and the direction of the courses that we may take in the future. So historical research is obviously very useful in understanding the trends or the problems that are prevalent today and the problems that may prevail in the future generation. Okay, so in historical research, we will study whatever document was there, whatever documentary was there, and then we will study them. Okay, and from those studies, we will try to find out what problem was there and what are the possible solutions that they have formulated, that they have done, and what happened today. How does those past events affect today's events? Okay, when we contact the past events and the present events, we can know what possible problems that we can face in the future. How will we drive the education system? Towards which direction should we drive the education system? That is historical research. Philosophical research in education can be taken up under historical research, and they they deal with the philosophical aspect of education, like how knowledge is acquired. Okay, metaphysical. How is it related to reality aspect, or axiological? How is it concerned with our value? Okay, so philosophical research is basically interpretative in its approach, and it involves careful definition of the terms and processes. So in philosophical, we conduct research in the philosophical aspect of education. In philosophical aspect, um, we can like from the Vedic period, they have said that this is a particular way of acquiring knowledge. How it's still valid there, they have particular way of viewing social reality. Okay, social reality, like what is real and what is not real. Okay, and how is it? What are the values connected with the Vedic period, and how does it influence our that education system in the particular area? Those aspects are known as philosophical research. So philosophical research has to relate to the historical research. In ethnography, it has to do with the society. Okay, and in ethnographic research, we use observation, non-participant observation. We observe the individuals in their natural setting, no control over anything, okay, as they are. We take their perspective. So the subjective view of the participant, okay, the primary data, they were recorded. Okay, so subjective views are there. Historical research, it is subjective in nature, and philosophical research, they are subjective in nature. So that is all about unit one. Okay, we still need to talk about unit two. Okay, here we are going to talk about knowledge. Okay, so we have talked about justified through knowledge. Through knowledge, there are three elements. Okay, there are three elements in knowledge. Okay, the three element is there is a system of ideas. The first element. The second element is that the idea corresponding to things that is actually existing, and there is a belief in such correspondence. Okay, those are the three elements of knowledge. So um, We need knowledge. As a human being, we need knowledge um, and use those knowledge in order to do all our life activities. Without theory of knowledge, okay, without theory of knowledge or knowledge, it is practically impossible to do our life activities. So knowledge is a product of knowing. Okay, we know, knowing, perceiving, we perceive things, thinking, we think about things and we guess, okay, guessing, and making mistakes. Okay, we remembered, we find out, we infer, we try to prove things, we reflect on the knowledge that we have, and we imagine things, and we practice those knowledge, and we try to uh, we try to formulate new knowledge. There are so many things that that knowledge is made up of. Okay, so everything that we do in our lifetime are produce knowledge. Okay, so knowledge may be in the form of facts or belief or judgment. All this can be gained through certain ways. Okay, so we are again going to talk about um, the sources of knowledge. Okay, so the first sources of knowledge according to historical perspective is life experiences. All right, so in order to conduct life activities satisfactorily and successfully, man has to understand his environment and the nature of phenomena it presents to his sense. Otherwise, he can hardly hope to solve the problems that he faces constantly. That means that through our life experiences, from the environment that we interact with, and the nature of phenomenon that we experience through our senses, our five senses, we gain knowledge, and that helps us in solving problems that we face every day. So if we are going to solve the problems related to the issues that we have with our children, the issues that we have in our classroom, then our life experiences can help us solve that. Okay, on elementary level, a child may know that water runs downward. Okay, water can be poured from one container to another container, and then he remembered that. So when he goes to other area, to his house, then he can perform certain experiments with water, and then he will know the characteristic of water and use that in order to water plants or do other things in his life. So that helps in gaining knowledge. Okay, the next thing is authority. There are certain authorities. In schools, we have teachers. Okay, the teacher says, whenever I enter the classroom, you all should stand up and wish me. And you are not supposed to fight in the classroom. You are supposed to answer properly inside the classroom. All that rules the authority will make inside the classroom, and if the child follows, he learns the values, how to respect teachers. He learned how to participate in the classroom. He learned how to be a good student. By learning how to be a good student, he also learned to be a good citizen. He learned how to live with other kids and interact with other kids properly in a civilized manner. So through authority, the child learns so many values. Okay, and when we talk about family, the parents are the authority, and the parents will tell and they teach their word, okay, teach their children how to live, how to behave, how to eat, how to walk, how to dress, and everything that they need in order to survive. So through authority and the explanation of the authorities, why it should be done properly and how it should be done, that can form a very important source of knowledge for children. Okay, so it like um in every education system or in the society also, there are leaders. They are leaders, okay, educational leaders. Those leaders in the society, those leaders, they will lead, they will talk about, they will organize certain awareness, and those certain awareness that they have conducted, if we have taken it and assimilated, even if we find some issues sometimes, then those can go off, okay, then we gain knowledge. All right, we gain knowledge, we gain more awareness, so that becomes a part of our a source of knowledge. So authority forms a very important source of knowledge for students, children, okay, specifically for those children, okay. Then we have customs and tradition, which we have already discussed, okay. So we learn our custom and tradition, our cultures as a member of a society. In a society like in Mizo society, we learn about Lomgaina, and this Lomgaina has been promoted through school books, as well as like everyday practice of our parents, as well as in the society. Whenever we go out, we talk about Lomgaina. The elders practice it, and we just follow them, and it becomes a part of our self. Okay, a part of our being. We assimilated whatever practice that we have, and then we have a habit of eating, okay, habit of eating, how to eat, particular food that we promote, all that, the dressing style, okay, we wear one, and those one are our costumes, okay. So when we assimilate those things, then those become a part of our knowledge. So customs and tradition relating to our cultures, okay, that we have assimilated, um, become our source of knowledge, okay. The limitation of customs and tradition as source of knowledge is also there, okay. We should never assume that everything that is in our customs are the best way to do things. Some custom needs advancement, some tradition needs to be changed, okay. So the reliability is less, okay. So for instance, like there are certain erroneous tradition customs, like in today's world there are so many bad vices in the world, and spending a night in a decreased family, okay, decreased person's family, where in certain areas like in Aizawl, it has been stopped because certain people in the society are not that good person, okay, they may be making problem for the family later on, so those has been stopped. So some traditions has to be discarded. So even though traditions and customs are a good source of knowledge, they have to be properly analyzed and adopted. Okay, then we have deductive reasoning. So we have talked about deductive reasoning and the syllogism. Okay, so in deductive reasoning, we go from the major premises to minor premises, and then we make an inferences. Okay, so here, we can say that all the planets revolves around the sun. Okay, so Earth is also a planet, so that means that us also revolve around the sun. So Pluto is not a planet, but it still revolves around the sun. So it is a dwarf planet. Okay, so the assumption underlies syllogism is a sequence of formal aspect of logic from general to particular, and valid conclusion can be deduced from a valid premises. But then if there is a invalid premises, then deduction can be unreliable. Then in induction reasoning can be attributed to Baconian induction. Okay, Francis Bacon of the 1600s. Okay, so in induction reasoning, we go from from a particular to general. All right. So then we have scientific method. Scientific method, we have already discussed about scientific method, so we won't go over it again. It is a combination of deductive and inductive reasoning. We will just talk about the limitation of scientific method. Okay, in scientific method, um, we considered hypothesis, collection of data of evidence, inferring and testing and verifying the hypothesis. But certain other factors like intuition, imagination, and chances have an undeniable role that played in the process of inquiry. Okay, so if we take only scientific knowledge into consideration while conducting research, it cannot be 100% valid because those intuition, imagination, imagination, and chances, they also have a role in influencing the byproduct. All right. So then in scientific method is represented only a reconstructed logic and not logic in use as far as scientific exploration are concerned. So it is logic does not suffice the reconstruction of idealism of logic of science. So it does not fully logic is not enough to formulate um, new knowledge. Okay, so those are the limitation of scientific research. So we can go over to knowledge generation, historical perspective too. Here we are going to talk about positive paradigm. Okay, and then we will talk about the emergence of different field method depending upon positive paradigm. Alright, so positive paradigm, how does it come up? If we say that positive paradigm of knowledge generation is based on philosophical ideas of French philosopher Auguste Comte, who turned to observation and reason as a means of understanding behavior. So it is basically dependent on observation and reason. Okay, this Auguste Comte was a socialist. Okay, so invented the new science of society and gave it the name sociology. All right. So the different aspect of positive paradigm are that it is difficult in making precise meaning. All right. The first thing is that it is very difficult in making precise meaning. All right. So the first assumption is that there is no assumption of determinism according to which events have caused and are determined by other circumstances. These actual links are eventually be uncovered and understood, and that the events are explicable in terms of their antecedent. The universe does not have capriciously. It is the ultimate aim of scientists to formulate laws to account for the happening in the world around them, obtaining thereby a firm basis of prediction and control. The second assumption is that of empiricism, which holds that certain kinds of reliable knowledge can only originate in experience, but scientifically means that the acceptance of a theory or hypothesis depends on the nature of empirical evidence for its support. Right. So this means that positivism they emphasize on empiricism. Empiricism emphasize on experiences. Okay, so those experiences may not we frame a theory, and then we frame a hypothesis, and then we find out depending on the evidence we find out the validity. Here, empirical means it is verifiable by observation, but then those observation may not be enough. So it will be difficult to get a precise meaning. So the third assumption refers to parsimony. And when we talk about parsimony, it means that we need to explain certain concept in a very, very economical way. That means in the minimal way. So when we explain things in the most economical way possible, then we might miss something. So that will become difficult for making precise meaning. And the fourth assumption is that it becomes essential for forming generalization to use both deductive and inductive method of reasoning. All right. So concrete particular, and then abstract general. This relationship does not always go together, and sometimes there arises problems. So it becomes to arrive at exact knowledge. Okay. So let us talk about the knowledge generation under positive paradigm. Okay, positive paradigm has systematized the generation process, which process as the development of science. So when we talk about science alone, it has to depend on certain variables and parameters which are to be evaluated and put it in the form of numbers, which are then systematically as theories to begin to integrated as theories, and integrated and the theories from those analysis develop into theories. Okay. Depending on the nature of phenomena under study, laws, theories, and principles are formulated and systematized. Okay, so the knowledge are established through experimentation, deductive, inductive method. So they apply scientific method. All right, then they follow a systematic method. When they follow the system method and they have integrated the integrated everything together, it forms a part of a theory. When the theory, okay, everything the researcher does are under controlled condition and manipulate, and they manipulate. Okay, they conduct certain experimentation. So depending upon the nature of the phenomena that they have studied, okay, scrutinized, okay, experimented, laws, principles, and theories are formulated and systematized. So that is the way that knowledge is generated under positive paradigm. All right. So we will not talk about the limitations. There are other ways of finding the conducting research beside positive paradigm. Under positive paradigm, we have experimental research, quasi-experimental research, and correlational studies. Descriptive research also comes under uh, positive paradigm. Okay. Beside that, there are certain ideologies. Okay, we have the subjective social reality, subjective conception. So according to subjective conception, there are certain ways to conduct research. All right. So one of the ways is phenomenology. So phenomenology is a theoretical point of view that advocates the study of direct experiences, that is the study of society through direct experiences, that is taken at face value. The behavior as determined by the phenomenon of experience rather than by external objective and physically described reality. Okay, that means that the behavior are determined by phenomenon of experiences rather than those positive perspective where they physically, externally, and objectively describe reality. So everything is taken in naturalistic settings. All right. So that means that the phenomenon under study is experience, and according to phenomenologists, experience provided meaningfulness to the phenomenon rather than those objective uh, external physical intrusion. All right. So the experience of an individual involved is essential and integral part of a phenomenon. So if I am going to conduct a study through phenomenology, whatever phenomenon that is content within a society which have certain educational system, I will go there in the natural setting. I will experience the phenomenon myself as a non-participant observer. Okay. Then um, the social phenomena like natural phenomena have a very important coordination in experience. So like if the the main characters, the characteristic of the value system of the particular student in a particular educational institution, if I want to find out depending upon their society. Okay, if I want to find out, then it is better to observe how they behave rather than give them a test, how they behave in a particular setting, in a natural setting, and observe them. Then they will be that will give us a better perspective. That is what phenomenology is about. Right. Inclusion of this constitute a human experience in the social phenomenon makes them very difficult or different from natural phenomenon. Therefore, the content of educational phenomenon has to be viewed with this perspective, which has direct implication both deciding the suitability and appropriateness of the mode of inquiry. So, phenomenology has emphasized on direct experiences. So, the essential structure of social phenomena are social organization. Okay, how are the society structured? What are the different stratification that are present in the particular society? The social relationship between the student, the parents, the stakeholders of the school system. Okay, the social relationship, the classroom environment, how the teacher interact with the student, how the student interact with the school staff, right? And belief system. What do they believe in? What are their value system? How are they value oriented? And resultant directional pattern. Those will make those element makes up the phenomenon, and every individual experience is an integral part of these elements. So um, the whole phenomenon will become temporal as well as contextual. So depending upon a particular context, the phenomenon will evolve. So this is about phenomenological study. Okay, then ethnomethodology. This is another way of conducting a research. Alright. So in ethnomethodology, it is concerned with the world of everyday life. In the world of the proponent of its proponent Harold Garfield Kell, it is set out to treat practical activities, practical circumstances, and practical sociological reasoning as topics of empirical studies, and by paying to the most commonplace activities of daily life the attention usually accorded, extraordinary events seek to learn about them as phenomena in their own right. So, according to this, humans act towards things on the basis of the meaning they have for them. Human habits inhibits two different worlds. The natural world wherein they are organisms of thrive and instinct, where the external world exists independent of them, and the social world there where the existence of symbol like language enables them to interact with other people. So These are the these are the basis of ethno methodology. So we study the everyday life of an individual according to their social reality. Then we have the emergence of different methods. Here we have case study methods, projective technique, and anecdotal record. So all this case study method, it is based on descriptive research. Okay, it is based on descriptive research. We studied according to what they are. Field work, it involves participant and non-participant observation, interviewing, probably collection of documentary evidence and descriptive data, and even the administration of tests and questionnaire. And then lastly, the use of photography, motion pictures, or videotape recording. So, in case study method, we studied a particle concept in depth. Okay, suppose if I study IGNOU ISO Center, then every aspect of IGNOU ISO Center I will study. Okay, I will collect document. I will try to form the perception by administering questionnaire, and I will also take different pictures to depict what it is, and I will write the detailed summary or what I find according to my perspective. So that is case study. So in projective tests, okay, projective tests are used to probe the areas that cannot be easily reached. Okay, that means if I try to find the inner, okay, the unseen part of a human psychology, then I use projective technique. So we have this such as thematic appreciation test, roster test, plot test, word association test. Through the structured, self-structured, spontaneous responses, the subject unconsciously reveals manifestation of his personality, characteristic, and organization. Projective test techniques are used to study the personal characteristic and organization that is unconscious. The conscious part we portray. The unconscious parts are tendency. Those are studied through projective technique. Then we have anecdotal record. In anecdotal report, a teacher will keep a record of a student. Okay, he will write the characteristic of a student. In anecdotal report, the behavior of the student are recorded, and the teacher does not record the characteristic of the student every day. All right. Whenever the student portrayed a striking behavior or a behavior that is contradictory to what he has done before, then he record that. Okay, suppose like we have a student who has been late consistently. The day that he is not late, the teacher will record, and the characteristic that he has never shown before. If he shows them, whenever he shows those type of characteristic, the teacher record them. So that is known as anecdotal record. All right. So that is about what we will discuss today, and thank you for your time. All right. Thank you.